Craving sophistication? Introducing the newest lifestyle app on Roku. Dive into reviews, behind-the-scenes craftsmanship, and the secrets of aficionados. This isn't just an app, it's an experience. Download the app now on the Roku store.
Cigars are more than tobacco. They're tradition, craft, and community. Every person in this industry has a story, and every story deserves to be told. This is Uncut, the full, unfiltered conversations with the people behind the cigars you know and love. From brand owners and blenders to reps and lounge owners, we sit down to hear their journey in their own words. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on socials at @TheCigarTV. And remember, cigar culture never stops. For news, updates, full episodes, and how to watch, visit cigartv.com. Stay smoky. Here we are. We just lit up this beautiful 2024. 6 by 60?
5.5 by 60.
5.5 by 60.
Mm-hmm. It's a really cool shape. We call it the Grand Toro.
Grand Toro.
Yeah. And there's a lot of sizes that can fall within Grand Toro, right? A lot of people use the same classic Cuban-style naming conventions for cigars, but in American, or we'll call all these New World cigars, that's the term they use a lot in Europe for Nicaraguan and Dominican tobacco. It's called New World. But a lot of the classifications for Vitola we use are pretty much Robusto, Toro, Churchill, and then sometimes a double Toro or a Gordo, they'll call it.
Absolutely.
And it's all different names.
Yeah.
You know, there's Churchill Extra, or there's Wide Lanceros, which used to be called Fundadores back in the day, but I don't think you can put Fundadore on a box. I can't believe I've said Fundadore 3 times and not messed it up. It's a hard word.
Yeah, people, just trying to make changes and make things unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you and your buddy were here in Tampa. You smoked your first Oliva cigar.
Yeah.
Take me back to where your cigar journey started.
Yeah. So, growing up, my father, he smoked cigars occasionally, and he still does to this day. And now it's all Oliva. He is the most loyal customer we've got. He's got the bumper stickers all over the car, the stickers. It's really kind of an awesome thing. Just the sense of pride. But he'd always smoked cigars, but everything I was kind of into as a kid leaned into it. I mentioned Boston Legal earlier. I loved that TV show. And I love the idea that the last scene of every episode of that show, it was James Spader and William Shatner sitting out, reflecting, smoking cigars, and having those real conversations in a way that was comfortable and accessible and easy to get to, just over a cigar instead of, a therapist or an office setting, things like that. It's a good way to unwind with your friends and really get into the deep, nitty-gritty stuff of life. So that was a big one. Winston Churchill, as a young guy, that's always an influence. The first moment you learn about him in history. I remember once I went on a vacation and I went, well, they said Churchill smoked upwards of 10 cigars a day. I'm going to try it. Didn't go well. I got up to about 7 and I went, I cannot have another cigar. But growing up, it was always that stuff. I studied a lot of history as a kid, and even in college, I did a little bit of anthropology. So learning all the great cultures of the world, all this great history, there's some form of long filler tobacco smoked all the way throughout it, be it for religious purposes or meditative purposes or even political purposes. And I mean, we all know cigars became a massive political tool, especially here in America back in the 60s. So it's always been an ever-present thing. And I've always liked the smell, not to denigrate cigarettes or things like that, but it doesn't smell as pleasant as when somebody's walking by with a cigar. And I know all taste is subjective. Mm-hmm. If I sit out front of a cigar shop and a track and field team runs by, they're gonna cough, and I know it's not pleasant for them. But I wasn't on the track and field side of things as a kid. I was always fascinated by the idea of cigars and just sort of how it opened up how you think. And then when you look at it, the effects of nicotine on the body and the central nervous systems, you have serotonin, you have magnesium that builds as you smoke these. I'm not a scientist, so I won't speak to that with any assurity, but all that stuff really does speak to how it makes people relax and how it gets you into that headspace.
Absolutely. Well, you seem very educated.
It's all an act.
Well, you mentioned New York and Boston. Where are you from?
Well, I'm from Daytona Beach.
Okay.
So I lived in New York for about 9 years. up until I came down to work for Oliva. And then before that, I lived in San Francisco for about a year for a little bit of grad school. So I've been all over, both coasts.
Absolutely. Well, talk about the cigar culture from place to place.
Yeah. So it's neat when you look at sort of how America's built in the history of America, because a lot of what we know, especially being here in Tampa, in Florida, is it moved east to west. And a lot of industrial America really moved from the east to the west, right? We were getting all sorts of supplies and things like that from Europe. All the explorers who built America to what it is came from that way, and it built across from the east to the west. So you have all these old cities with great cigar rooms. So New York used to be a really fantastic cigar city. Or you look at a city like Chicago, has a really rich history in cigars with some of the oldest shops in the country and really the world. And that's a neat thing, and it really consumes it more. So living in New York for a while, it's the hustle and bustle, it's the fast-paced thing, but you could find these little cigar rooms, a lot in Midtown. There's a cool Italian-owned joint down in the Lower East Side, Little Italy area in Manhattan. But you go all the way up to the Bronx, and you see a completely different culture of the same product, right? And I always tell people, a lot of cigar shops try to compete and things like that. All you're really selling at the end of the day is the same product. It's a different experience where you go. And I always tell people, you don't have to worry about taking customers from one place to another place. Just worry about doing what you do really well in a way that honors your beliefs and your passion in the cigar industry, because everybody gets back to it with passion.
Absolutely.
But anyways, back to Chicago. That was a cool cigar city. I spent a little bit of time there, not a lot. But you have great shops like Iwan Reese is one of the old Americana style cigar shops there. And then things have been built out. When I lived in New York, I worked for Nat Sherman, which was a great old historic cigar company since 1930 up until they ceased operations just recently through the COVID pandemic. And it's neat seeing that. So when I lived in California also has a rich history of American innovation and growth, but that's more the gold rush and opportunity and things like that coming through is how the West Coast of America was really built out. But now we all know the laws are a little bit stricter when it comes to smoking and things like that. So I lived in San Francisco, it was 2013, 2014, and it was really hard to find a place to smoke a cigar because it was illegal to smoke indoors at most places. And then sometimes on the streets, you could be 20 feet away from a door, you had to be blah, 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 blah. Which is just, you find a way to make it work, right? But one of my favorite things to do in San Francisco is I went to school, it was right in Union Square in the middle of the city. So I'd go up the Embarcadero, walk all the way to Fisherman's Wharf, and there was a really small kind of touristy cigar shop. So I'd buy a couple things there, and then I'd walk back down the Embarcadero to where I lived in the Tenderloin, just smoking a cigar and enjoying it. And there's a great cigar shop in San Francisco that's sort of figured out how to be able to smoke indoors called the Occidental. And I love that place. I was there a lot in grad school. And that was just a really gorgeous cigar store, bar, with a lot of really cool people there. I miss that place. It's been years.
Reminiscing a little bit.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's what a cigar does. So you just mentioned competition, and me being an athlete, I want to know a little bit about what it's like being a territory sales manager. And when you're, we're quote unquote pitching to cigar lounges, the competition factor between Oliva versus other people, it's not really a competition, right? We want everybody to shine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is about money and getting your product on the shelf. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So what's neat with this is you look at the penetration of cigars and consumerism as a whole, and it's tiny, right? So at least in my point of view, right, that's all I know, is it's not this crazy competitive thing where, okay, I have to sell more than this company, I have to sell more than this, we all get along. There's this great sense of camaraderie for all the road warriors, right? All these guys doing the same job. We're out there. We know it. We care about each other. We can talk to guys from other companies. And we brainstorm a lot because every company does things a little bit differently. And I've learned, and this is just my take on things, if you're too insular to what you're doing, you really limit your growth, and you can even stop it completely. So it's fun to talk to these other companies about their sales strategies, about how they structure events, about how they pitch things to customers, about even how we organize a schedule. You know, one guy, he says, okay, every second week of the month I have to be in Orlando. Every third week I have to be in this city and this city. Or you have some guys like me, is I keep my schedule a little more open, and I like to say I go to the needs of my market. You know, so I don't want it to be by rote, anything I do, you know, because you have to keep it fresh, you have to keep it exciting, because this is a passion, this whole thing. So it's fun talking to the other guys about that when you get into it. And when the reps get together, it's gloves off, it's wild, it's a lot of fun, it's stuff that can never have a camera around it, in a good way. But it's just this great sense of camaraderie amongst every company. Now, you have some salesmen who only smoke what they produce in their own company, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great way to be aware of your product and aware of everything about it. I like to smoke a little bit of everything, because I started this as a cigar fan. I worked in retail so long, so I like to be able to talk to product across the board and say, oh, okay, this company's doing this, here's what my company's doing, here's how it tastes similar, here's how it tastes different. And that way, it's easier for me to communicate to a retailer and through a retailer to their customers about where my brand can fit. Because if I only know what I have, it really limits my knowledge as a whole. So if somebody comes in and says, well, here's this cigar I smoke, I don't know your brand at all, you don't want to say, well, I don't know what you smoke, smoke this.
Yeah.
Because that's not good, right? That's not a fun conversation. So I think knowing a little bit about everything is a great tool. So when I sit down with other reps, we talk about the blend some, we talk about when they smoke it, the occasion of how they smoke it, you know, what their celebratory cigars are, things like that. And we always sort of, you know, horse trade with each other. It's fun when you do a multi-vendor event. So we met at a big multi-vendor event in Naples the first time, and that was 4 major companies. So it was us, Arroyo CLE, Rocky Patel, and Altadis. So something like that's a fun opportunity to smoke stuff that we haven't smoked from each of those companies, and we trade those cigars back and forth, and we talk. And then that way, when the customers came into where we were sort of having our sales area, they were excited because it wasn't this high pressure environment. It was just fun.
Absolutely.
Because that was a unique thing, the trade shows, is we had 4 tables set up with each company, and then the customers would sort of meet in the middle. It almost felt like American Idol. But we didn't want them, you know, we didn't want to be the judges. We just said, okay, everybody smoke, everybody have fun. You know, you can say, oh, you're over there at the Rocky Patel table with my buddy Max and Nish, that you're having a great time. Or like, okay, go talk to Christian and Vanessa, they know this. And it's just a fun, really cool way to do things, to see how everybody does it, and to just be part of this community as a whole.
I love that event for the exact reason that you said. It wasn't a high pressure situation. You know, you're not competing for people's time, or, you know, like you just said, everybody's smoking everybody's stuff, and just the camaraderie, the C words that I love. Well, before we dive into some more events that you highlight, you told me about this cigar, the Gran Toro Serie V Melanio 2024, to take this Melanio band off first.
Exactly. So we put 3 bands on this cigar. So when you take off that Melanio band, which I've already done, I already took off the secondary one. But when you take off the Melanio band, you'll expose a QR code that links to that playlist that we mentioned earlier about Paul Montag playing all these classic piano compositions. Yeah. So what's neat with all the QR codes, right? Obviously, that's modern innovation that everybody's doing. But what I like that we do with the QR codes is every box of Melanio, just regular production Melanio, we have a little cardboard piece in there with a QR code, and it links to who's responsible for that cigar that you're smoking. So it'll give you a little highlight about the Melanio, and then it'll tell you the buncher and the roller that made that specific box, which is really cool. And what we do that's neat in our factory is we pair up family a lot of times as buncher and roller, sometimes husband and wife, whatever the relationship is, and they get to work together in the same factory at the same time, and it just helps things. It speeds up production. It makes for a better overall work environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the QR code thing, Obviously, this is new era technology stuff. What other, as a sales rep, what other avenues in the tech industry are you seeing start to come about in the cigar industry?
So one thing that's neat to go back inside baseball in terms of sales and having a sales force is a lot of people are using that CRM technology, right? So you can devise a route, you can change your route based on how you plug things in. And there's big companies that do that like Salesforce and all these different smaller ones that everybody uses. So in terms of innovation, cigar companies are getting more into a fully intuitive CRM software. So it's easier to access things and it keeps you more accountable than just your handwritten notes pinned up on the car or blowing on the AC. That's a kind of cool thing that a lot of companies are either using really well or adopting those techniques. Also, social media is a really big thing, and I think right now a lot of companies are bridging the gap with social media of saying, how do you monetize all of the social media for your company specifically? And it's not just our companies, it's also the retailers. We're all younger, right? We're this younger generation. So how often do you go onto the World Wide Web, type in the name of a place, and look up their hours on a website built with Angel Fire? It's not what you do anymore. You go to social media, you look at Instagram, you see the little blurb, and it says, okay, here's when they're open. I can link to this. So a lot of cigar stores, brick and mortar stores, are finding ways to utilize social media more, not just to build excitement and engagement with their social media, but to actually bring those people into the store. So obviously the outreach of social media is the whole world. So you're going to get a lot of likes that are just people saying, hey, this is pretty cool, nice. And then they're never going to go to the shop, which is fine because that's your brand identity, that's brand awareness in terms of a shop and a company. But it's finding ways to get those people to come into the store and buy the product. So that's where sort of our events come in. It's great, and you do want to educate your retailers to a point where they can talk about product without you, because so many of these shops have a wealth of knowledge amongst their staff, their owners, their buyers, and a lot of reps come out of that area. So you want to arm a retail staff with as much knowledge as you can, but sometimes you want to bridge that gap and say, okay, here's a really cool event, and here's the person from the company that's going to be there, whether it's a sales rep, whether it's a principal of the company, a master blender, an owner, president, something like that. And that's a really good way people are driving things in. Also, innovation within how boxes are made. So classically, a box is just wood, right? But now other companies are doing things. You look at a brand like Ferio Tego, a good friend of mine, Michael Herklotz, owns that company, and he's built these boxes that serve as humidors. So they're using different versions of wood. Instead of just cedar, maybe you're getting African akume wood to have a box that serves better as a humidor, and then that's sort of your own business card. You can tap your phone on it and it links to it. Like us with the QR codes inside the majority of our boxes now. Those are just fun little innovations, and it's neat because we're implementing those in Nicaragua, right? That's where all that stuff happens, and you don't think of Nicaragua as this hotbed of technological advancements, but that's where it all comes from now, and that's where all the production is. I think that's a pretty cool thing.
The newest lifestyle app is here. Share the passion, the rituals, and the stories that bind us. From rare blends to legendary lounges, this is where the bonds thrive. Join us and add the app now on the Roku store.
Well, I'm sure the team at Oliva is huge. From Nicaragua, you mentioned you guys have 24 sales managers. Talk to me about maybe a story or a memory you have specifically with the Oliva team that just pops right off the top of your head.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to Nicaragua with Oliva for the first time just about a year ago. Last December, we had our annual sales meeting in Nicaragua, and it happened right around our CEO's, or the owner of the company, Fred's birthday. So Fred Vandermeyer, he's moved into the Oliva house as one of his properties in Nicaragua. So this is a great historical house the Olivas have always lived in. And we had a wild birthday party for him. And what's really neat with that company is he also brought over the French sales team. And it was an opportunity for us, you know, these American guys, to talk to the French sales team about how we did things differently and how to integrate it and say, okay, we're all part of this huge Oliva family now as well. That was something that was super, super enjoyable. Just the hospitality that everybody put out. And even touring our factories for the first time. So we have essentially 3 factories in Nicaragua, and office space and storage space and all that. But our the head of our factory, MJ, she's absolutely amazing. She just had twins relatively recently. Beautiful babies, I'm sure. Her taking us around and showing everything, and just the amount of knowledge she had at every level was amazing. And then we also have a guy, Cha, who's sort of our grand scientist or chemist in Nicaragua, and he's implementing everything to the safest level. So when you cure cigars, you pull ammonia out of those, and you have rooms where there's factory workers in there, and you want to make sure it's safe because ammonia is a chemical, right? But that's just how you process these plants to make them smokable. So he's implemented these things that make it safe, and he knows tobacco down to the cellular makeup of it and seed varietals and how you pull things out and go from a little sprout all the way to a 6-foot tall tobacco leaf and the right time to harvest it at a scientific level. So he was great there. And then we go to Fred's birthday party, and he's dancing with all of the sales team. We have our master blender, Ernesto, is out there dancing with all of us, and we're just having fun. So it's everybody who's at every single level of the company, just in a communal way, and it was awesome.
Absolutely.
That was a great time.
I can only imagine. I can just picture y'all dancing in my head.
Yeah, we've got a fun team. They put a dance floor over the pool in the Oliva house, so it was a little scary. You know, the first time you get up there and you understand that there's a pool underneath you, and everybody's dancing around, and they had just wild shows, and we had dancers who honored like Nicaraguan traditions and the costumes, and we have a great guy who does tech for us in Nicaragua and a lot of our marketing in Nicaragua, but he's this brilliant singer and guitar player. So he was there on stage, and it was so much fun.
Absolutely. So you mentioned the French Sales Task Force. What are some of those pieces of advice that maybe you gave to them and some that they gave to you to implement here in America?
Yeah. So the biggest takeaway I got is their territories are so much smaller. It's a completely different process of sales. When you look at the European side of sales, it's more a distributorship and distribution channel with brand ambassadors, kind of in that way. So it's a different responsibility of sales goals and things like that. And the territories, they were all shocked when we said, oh yeah, my territory, so for me, Jacksonville to Fort Lauderdale, that's about a 6-hour drive overall. And to tell them, oh yeah, this is how big my territory is, they went, how do you drive that car? If I drive 6 hours, I'm in a different country. And that's just, you know, a cultural difference. And that was fun, but also seeing how they have conversations differently with consumers. So a lot of things over there are still very much about the ritual of selecting a cigar. If you've ever been to a shop in France or Switzerland or anywhere over in Europe and the UK, the tobacconist there will select the cigar for you. They'll feel it over to make sure that it's the perfect smokability. And I think that's a really neat thing to do with cigars, instead of just saying, okay, I got it, I'm gonna chop it and smoke it, I'm good to go. And I think there's a middle ground for that, right? Neither is right or wrong, but finding the ritual of smoking a cigar to slow yourself down in the process, or saying, hey, I've had a stressful day, I'm gonna hop in my car, I'm gonna drive 5 hours, I'm gonna smoke a cigar. That was a neat thing, seeing the difference in those.
Absolutely. I haven't heard of that before. The tobacconist making sure that you get a quality cigar, but also, you know, hey, what do you like? And here's something I would select for you.
Yeah, it's really a neat thing. I have a good friend, this guy Sean, another Sean. When he was running a shop in Orlando, we always liked finding the most Ligero, right? So Ligero is sort of the darker spot, especially in Nicaraguan tobacco. You can look at the foot of the cigar, and it looks like a little Swiss roll. So me and Sean, we'd go through boxes trying to find the best production of that little Swiss roll of flavor. We went, I know this one's gonna be great. And that was sort of the thing we did, and now I pass that on to people when I talk about it. Every cigar is great, but it's a handmade product, so you're going to see those little differences in how it's rolled.
Absolutely.
And actually, to go back to social media and things like that, is we're opening up a lot of stuff for people to see the process of how these are rolled. So we work a lot with this company called Cigar Academy, and so do a lot of the other big companies. But these guys are showing and offering an accreditation program to qualify you for cigar knowledge, much like a sommelier and things like that. But they dive into it and they say, well, here's how it's rolled. Here's the Lieberman technique, is a big thing that's on social media now. And really what that is how the cigar is bunched when it's rolled, entubado style, all those things. And I think that's a really neat thing for your average consumer to be able to go onto social media and go, oh, here's what I'm smoking and here's how this was rolled. It's really cool. And then when you look for that little Swiss roll of Ligero, you can think back to all the technique that did it.
Constantly learning.
Yeah.
So I don't think we got into it, but how did you end up here at Oliva? What is the story of the opportunity that presented itself and you taking that opportunity?
So when I was getting out of the retail side of cigars, I knew I wanted to be a sales rep or a territory sales manager, the traveling rep, because that's really where my skills were suited. And I like being out on the road. I like talking to different people every single day. This is a big part of why I liked retail. But I left retail during COVID and I went into a couple different things. I was running bars. I ran a comedy club for a little bit in New York. Lots of bar management, and then I got into cigar bar consultancy. So I tell people, you know, it's almost like John Taffer, you know, but actually in a real world way that helps people, and it's not on camera. But you go in and you say, okay, here's how you can monetize this. Here's how you can install a bar into your cigar lounge, which a lot of places are doing now, to sort of double that revenue or at least get more of a nighttime crowd in. So I did that for a while, and then I ended up back in Orlando at my local cigar shop, where I first started buying cigars when I was in college. It used to be right up the street from my college. And the owner said to me, hey, I've got a liquor license. Can you come down and help me install a bar and train the staff? And I did that. And then while I was down in Orlando, an opportunity to interview with Oliva came up. And this shop owner, Don, my good buddy Don, has a great relationship with Oliva. And he called me one morning, and I had 2 hours notice to show up to the interview. The sales team from Oliva had booked an Embassy Suites suite. They had a table set up, and they were just funneling through all these interviews with people. And my buddy Don called me and said, you got 2 hours, get ready, here's the address. And I didn't have a suit jacket or anything with me. So I ran to the mall really quick. I bought a suit jacket. I threw it on. I show up to the interview, and I met my direct boss, John, and then our VP of sales, Jeff, were the ones doing the interview, and we just really hit it off in a great way. And they're actually a little trepidatious that I was in New York, and they went, well, do you want to move to Florida? And I said, yes, I'm completely open to that idea. It sounds great to me. And then, long story short, a few months went past. They filled the position in Orlando with somebody in the interim. They went on to do other things, and this is all within 3 months. So then Oliva called me and said, hey, can you come to Florida in 2 weeks? And I was with a different company. I said, yeah, I have a responsibility here. I have an event to do. After that, I'm all yours. And they went, great. And ever since then, we just hit the ground running, and it was, it's fun. You know, the onboarding process to be a sales rep is different for every company, but it all distills sort of down to one thing. And this can be for every aspect of life, but it helps in sales, it helps in business, is all you really want to do is you get up, you show up, and you follow up. And that was one of the biggest lessons I learned from several people in the industry, and that's really how you keep going. Because it doesn't matter if you're a little under the weather, it doesn't matter how the weather outside is, how traffic is. You got to get up, you got to show up, and then you follow up with those places you've stopped and visited, because everybody earns that respect in business.
Absolutely. I'm going to get a damn T-shirt press and start pressing slogans from everybody we work, because everybody's got a quote. I love it. So I guess the question I've always asked, or wondered,
Yeah.
say I own a cigar lounge. do you roll in with just boxes of your guys' stuff and say, hey, this is what we have, put this on your shelf? Or
You know, everybody does it differently. And granted, in a perfect world, every single cigar store would have every single product I make on the shelf, right? One in each size all the way through. That's in a perfect world. And a lot of accounts have that if they have the space, things like that. But we've all been to enough cigar shops that are, closets or a little hole in the wall, and there's not much there in terms of storage. And you want to keep these things, safe for storage, because that's the investment for these businesses, right? So if the product goes bad, they've lost their investment. So I try to cater to what they want to their clientele, because they're going to know their clientele better than me. They're going to know their area, socioeconomically better than I do. So you lean on the retailer and you trust their expertise is a big part of it. And then obviously you sell a little bit and you say, well, I've seen this person smoking this and they mentioned they like this size. Let's try this out. And you tweak little things. But I feel, for me, everything I do is in service to my retail partners. They are first and foremost the ones who are driving the business, driving the industry, driving in what is seen every day. So if I can do something to help them in the best way and boost their sales and boost their profile, that's what I like to do as a sales rep.
Absolutely. You've given us more than enough advice, but
Yeah.
say there's someone whose dream is to become a sales rep, or they are a sales rep and they're looking for one piece of advice from you. What would it be?
Be passionate. It's easy, any job, it's easy to have burnout. And I've run sales teams, I've run bars, and I've seen burnout in real time. But as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, it'll never be a slog. And by being passionate, a lot goes into that. It's not just saying, I like cigars, I'm passionate. It's knowing the product knowledge, it's knowing the history of things, it's knowing your clientele. But be passionate and be present every time you have a conversation with somebody about it. And this is just good advice for life too, is speak to your highest level of knowledge of everything you know and be open to learn more and learn stuff from everybody that you can. I mean, the nature of taking advice is being open to advice and then choosing which advice to follow, right? And that's a hard thing to figure out, and the only way you figure that out is through time and trial and lots of error. But be passionate about anything you do, especially if you do something for a job and you do something that affects the lives of other people and the livelihoods of other people. To have the respect to be passionate about them is really the biggest thing.
Awesome. So we kind of like to end this thing out with a couple of, I don't know if they're heartfelt questions, but this thing is important to us and we love it and we're passionate about it. So I guess, what does a cigar mean to you?
It's a good question. How to take it down to one thing. Cigar to me means friendship. In a big way, I've met some of the best friends in my life through cigars. One of my best friends I met at a cigar shop in my hometown, so it's one I'm at more often than others. But earlier this year, I was a groomsman in his wedding. So that was that level of friendship. It's a friendship with yourself too, right? Every time you sit down for a cigar solo, maybe at the end of a long day, a glass of bourbon or a root beer, whatever you want, it's a friendship with yourself and just being connected. Not to get too wango tango out there in the hippie world, but to connect yourself to the earth in a really grounded way. That's where these things come from. So to honor that friendship with the world you walk on and how you interact with everything, I think is, to me, a key part of a cigar. That's what a cigar means to me.
That was awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
So, Oliva Tobacco, 2023, 2024, 2025 is right around the corner. We're coming up here faster than, it's here. Talk to me about what's in store for Oliva Cigar Company.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, we've just launched this Roaring 20s cigar, which is a neat thing. When you look at the cigar industry right now, a lot of companies are coming out with high dollar items, and you have a lot of consumers go, well, why am I spending this much on a cigar? Blah, 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 blah. The idea is to be so proud of what we put out in the world that we can have this showpiece, this living art, right? that represents us as a whole and says we are so proud of what we do. And if our retail partners choose to carry that cigar, that's absolutely fantastic. But I think that's something a lot of companies are doing to show how serious they are about this still. And granted, we run the whole gamut from a $300 cigar all the way down to an under $10 cigar for the nubs or the Gs or the Os. There's something for every level. What's on the horizon for us is we don't reinvent the wheel, but we're going to continue doing what we do really well with little things of innovation. So maybe it's a new shape, a new size, but we're always working on new blends with partners. So many companies have hands in with other companies too. So, maybe Alec Bradley's blending a cigar with this company, or maybe we help blend a cigar with La Polina. And all that stuff's so exciting. So when you dive into the history of whatever cigar you have, and all the big publications do it, Cigar Snob, Cigar Aficionado, you can read about all these sort of things that are happening. And that's the innovation. So what's on the horizon? Fun thing about a sales guy, I'll know maybe a week before the consumer. And then I'll do everything I can to learn about that, to get my hands on the product, to smoke it, and then communicate what it is. So,
last question for you.
Yeah.
If you knew 1 million people were watching this, cigar smokers,
Yeah.
what would you tell them?
Can each of you give me $2? No. So if 1 million people are watching this, cigar smokers, cigar curious people, people who just want to know more about one specific thing, right? Be curious. Be passionate and always try to learn. When you smoke something, say, instead of I like this, go, why do I like this? And then figure out the answer to that question, right? It's how you find what cigar you like. How do I know I like Nicaraguan tobacco? Well, I've smoked a lot of it, and that's what fits my palate. So keep smoking, keep being curious, keep having conversations, and just listen to everything that everybody has to say, and have a good time.
Absolutely.
That's what cigars are.
Well, Ryan, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you for the cigars. It was a pleasure
Absolutely.
learning about Oliva and about yourself. I'm excited for you and what your future has in store.
Thank you.
My name is Sean Mobley, here with Ryan Bathurst, East Coast Territory Sales Manager for Oliva Cigar Company, and you've been watching Behind the Blend only on Cigar TV.
Ryan Bathurst, East Coast Florida Sales Manager for Oliva Cigar Company, and this is Cigar TV.
Slow down and savor the moment. The newest lifestyle app is finally here. We bring the art of it all to your screen. From lounges to master blenders, we feature it all. Find the app in the Roku streaming store and start watching today.